I'll just make a quick introduction. I'll just like set the
Okay.
forum. Yeah. And then we'll start at 11:10 probably, like after I'm done introducing both of you and speaking a bit
All
about
right.
WPN. And
Okay.
then 20 minutes each. And then we have the Q&A round for 15-20 minutes. All
Okay.
right.
Fine. Fine.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Yeah, and then we will start at 11:10 probably, like after I'm done.
All right.
And then 20 minutes each, and we have to Q&A round for 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay?
Fine. Thanks. All right.
Let's just wait for 2 minutes. I think some people have joined in here, and some people must have logged in on YouTube.
I can try it.
Yeah.
No, no. That's not you.
Let's just wait. Some people have joined in here, and some people logged in on YouTube. I can hear an echo. Is it the same with you? Can you hear this
No, I
YouTube?
am okay.
Oh, you're okay. I don't know why is it happening with me. I think I'll just start, and then people can keep coming in. Meanwhile. So hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar organized by Water Practitioners Network. Water Practitioners Network is a grassroots initiative of Samaj Pragati Sayog along with many several partner organizations working on different issues of water management to bring in a paradigm shift in the water management scenario in the country. And this webinar, we have two very special people with us who will be talking about Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. And as we all know that MGNREGA has had its bearing on water related conservation efforts across the country, direct and indirect bearing. But other than that, it's also been one of the largest flagship programs, also an act which has not only done great work on water related activities, but has also been a tool to alleviate rural distress. And so, but also we've seen since the lockdown has happened, we've seen one of the largest distress migration happening in independent India. And this since March, we've seen Manrega coming back into the focus, coming being talked about intensively again and again. During the whole period of lockdown, we see people retreating back to their rural villages, and we've seen Narega to be as a beacon of hope in these times. But since the program has gone through a lot of transformations throughout the past few years, and so we have two people with us who have been major proponents, advocates of MG Narega. So we have Mr. Pramatesh Ambasta with us and Ashwini Kulkarni. And most of you might know them, but it's a pleasure for me to introduce them again to you. So Mr. Pramatesh, he's the CEO of BRLF, an independent society set up by the Government of India to scale up civil society action in partnership with the government. And today, BRLF works with more than 5 lakh households in the central Indian tribal belt. And before taking over as CEO, Mr. Pramatesh has worked in the drylands, tribal drylands of Madhya Pradesh, and he's also the co-founder of Samaj Pragati Sahyog. And he's also looked after civil society partnerships and SPS training and support programs, along with water conservation programs of the organization. And both our speakers are also the members of the National Consortium of Civil Society organizations on MGNREGA. And he has served as a member of several high empowered committees of the government to advise on issues relating to tribal and rural development, including your Central Employment Guarantee Council, the apex decision-making body of NAREGA, and the empowered group of officers of the Government of India for the Integrated Action Plan for LWE District. And he's authored and co-authored several research papers and newspaper articles, including a book. The other speaker that we have on the panel today is Ms. Ashwini Kulkarni. She's also a part of the National Consortium of Civil Society Organization on NAREGA. And Ashwini ma'am is a social worker. She's been working on the Employment Guarantee Act of Government of Maharashtra. She's contributed to NAREGA tremendously, and she has worked closely with so her initiative Pragati Abhiyan, where she is the director. So they've been working closely with villages, around 80 villages in the Nashik district, with their teams, and she's been involved in writing in the mainstream and alternative media, both in English and vernacular, on the topic to highlight the issues and probable solutions. She's associated with various governments working groups, and she's been on the committee which drafted the guidelines of NAREGA and has been on quite a few committees of the state governments of Maharashtra. So I welcome both of you again and thank you for doing this for us. And so without much ado, we'll start the webinar with Ms. Ashwini speaking first, and she'll be having 15-20 minutes to her, and followed by Mr. Pramatesh. And then so meanwhile, people who have questions can type in their questions in the chat box, और हम उस हिसाब से आपके सवालों का जवाब देते रहेंगे. So yes, thank you, ma'am, and you may go ahead.
Thanks, Aditi, and a big thank you to Water Practitioners Network for organizing this and in these times, which is so important right now. I would like to go a little bit pre-COVID times. We are all actually embroiled ourselves in the COVID-related narrative, but let's go a little bit before COVID, where if we look at, or if we just have a snapshot of rural India, what do we see? We see a couple of very important indicators. One, most of our rural India is agriculture based, that we all know. What kind of agriculture is that? It is mainly not irrigated. That we need to remember. See, the irrigated farming is much less than the non-irrigated farming. So we have more of rain-fed. What we mean is we have more of monsoon-dependent farming in rural India. This is first aspect. Second aspect is the land holding. If we look at the land holding across India, we see that we have more of small and marginal farmers than the rest of the farmers. So these are the two important aspects we need to remember, that one, most of our farming is rain-fed, and two, most of our farmers own less than 5 acres of land. And to go with this, most of our farmers grow food grains, traditional crops here in across rural India. Now, given this situation, what do we have there? What are the kind of farmers we have here? Are ones who after Kharif, like after the monsoon period, they need to find some other meaningful employment, meaningful occupation, because just the Kharif farming is not going to help them live through all the 12 months for the family, right? We know this. Now from here comes the basis of MGNREGA to some extent. Here MGNREGA says that in your period which is post Kharif, it is good idea to have a meaningful, gainful employment within the village so that you don't have to have distress migration on one hand, and on the other hand we can build good infrastructure which in turn will help or will give a boost to village development, including farming, of course. Now this is the scenario that we have lived in. Now comes COVID. What happens? We live with a lot of fear, and then comes the lockdown. Not just the COVID, but the lockdown. Now lockdown has created too much of restrictions on movement. Then we saw a lot of migrants going back. What does all this mean to rural India? That it means that there are now more people in the families than earlier, and there are less avenues of income earning, because there was no NREG in March and April, which are the peak months for NREG across India. Summer is the peak time where almost all the families who have ever worked on NREG will work. So summertime, when it is their time to earn, they lost out. So this was one thing. Then there are more people in the house. That was another thing. And right now, if we see either the central government or state governments, the budgets have gone down. The expenditure on social sector is coming down. Now, in this scenario, what we see is that in last couple of months, what has reached people who are marginalized, who are disadvantaged, are two things. One is, of course, MGNREGA, and two is our ration, or the Food Security Act has provided them with some kind of subsidized food. For some time, it was also given free. But these are the only two things that they could manage with. Otherwise, there were no other avenues of living through this distress period. Now, if we go back to the earlier point of being rain-fed and small farmers, what else other than MGNRA does central government or state governments provide to this set of farmers? We have something called Kisan Sanman, where you get some cash over the year. We have Kisan Sinchai Yojana. We have crop insurance. We have IWMP. So we have some small programs, schemes here and there with few crores of rupees here and there. So the real substantial thing will come only from NREG. That we know. And that's why NREG gains very big importance in present times, because that's the only one where the budget has been increased to whatever extent. We have gone from 60 to 40, 60,000 crores to additional 40,000 crores, which is 1 lakh crores, and where the other budgets are going down. Even in crop insurance, we have observed this year that the total expenditure of state and central government has gone down, because July 31st was the last date for Kharif. So what does this mean for us? It means more people want work under NREGA. They want it for more number of days, and they want it to start early. Because there is another aspect to this whole situation that we are in. Because even in pre-COVID times, we were discussing the economic slowdown. When there is economic slowdown, let's say a simple thing like construction. If construction work goes down, it means that people in our rural areas don't find enough work, even if they go for distress migration into urban areas. So if with economic slowdown, it also means that casual labor that could be available during a post Kharif, during November, December up to let's say May, will also get reduced. So even if they want to get out of their villages and go and live in those harsh conditions in cities, nearby towns, it is not going to fetch them a lot of work, because that with economic slowdown, that has also got reduced. That means that we would like to have NREG work start early. If we look at the data of last few years or even 10 years, we see that the highest number of percentage generated households working is during summertime. So between November, after let's say October, after the harvest of Kharif, November, December, January, February is when people want work but don't get work. That's the time. So now we will have more people asking for work. They would like to have it for more number of days, and they would like to have it early. That is, they would like to have it post Diwali. Work needs to be started. Now, this is a big challenge, because if we see right now, we have already utilized of the 1 lakh crores, we are left with 54% of the budget. And we are only 4 months into the year, and we are left with 54%. And of the money that has been given to states, whatever has been already released by the central government to states, states have utilized 82% of it as of today. So where are we? I mean, if we really start work in November, December post harvest, then is even 1 lakh crore enough? That is something that is a big challenge to us. The planning, obviously, nobody thought of COVID when we did this planning last December, though there was economic slowdown, which doesn't seem to have been considered during the planning of labor budget for this financial year 2021. The labor budget, of that, 60% of the labor budget has already been utilized. So we have utilized 56% of the total budget for the financial year, and we have utilized 60% of the labor budget of this financial year, which means a big planning exercise is required from now. Big planning exercise. And in many of the states, even Gram Sabha is not taking place. That has not been allowed because of COVID fears, and we want social distancing, which again means that how will Gram Panchayat, people in the villages, plan and prepare the list of works that they want, get it resolved in the Gram Sabha, and then pass it on to Panchayat Samiti. Because if there are no Gram Sabhas, would that mean that whatever the state government or district decides, are those the works that will get done? That's a big question for all of us, because we want more and more of soil and water conservation related works to happen, which will give a boost to all these rain-fed and small marginal farmers that are the majority in rural India. And they are the ones who are going through a big agrarian distress right now. So planning is going to be a big, huge challenge right now. We have only this monsoon period left to us, and we don't want state and districts to decide what goes in as MGNREGA works in the villages. And if that has to happen, then how do we get more and more civil society organization, village youth groups and all get activated and come up with their own list of works that need to be done in their villages, which gives a boost to village development. Now, with this, actually, this is where later when we hear Pramatesh, we can see how these things can be done. Here, I would like to bring in just two charts. If possible, I will try and do that, just to show what we have already. Can this be seen? Yeah. Is the chart visible?
Yes, yes. I can see it.
Okay. So here we see the households who have demanded employment and who have been provided employment over the years. So on your axis, on one axis is the number of households, and other axis is number of years. So you see the 2021, which is still ongoing year, you have already see the bar charts are almost equivalent to the earlier years, which again tells us the challenge that we have in terms of planning. And this is another thing, that percentage generated. So we have already something like 30% on an average per household generated in this financial year. So we have something like 70 days left for these families who have already worked in the rest of the year, between 5-6 months. There will be more families who might come to work, and will even 100 days suffice is another question that we need to consider. Now, with these challenges, we need to think of the way forward. Where can we go from here? In spite of it, this being such a big challenge, what what seems important is the planning process, and that, which has to happen right now. If we can have the 15th August and the um, 2nd October, if we want to aim at these two gram sabhas in the villages, then these are the times when we have to get our list of works which is based on watershed related technique, watershed principle, and we have to have more and more of soil and water conservation works. If we see all these years of the work proportion, the agri and allied works is hovering around 64-65% of the total works. Now, if you want to increase this by, let's say, 10-12 percentile points, if we want us to go for, let's say, around at least 75% of the works be related to soil and water conservation works, it would mean that more and more planning has to come from the villages, and Gram Sabha has to ratify it. So this is a big process where civil society organizations can play a big role. And what Water Practitioners Network thinks and has flagged as big problems is something that can be addressed with this kind of planning. And this is where we might lose out, because if there is not adequate planning, if we don't have enough work on the shelf, then there will be more and more of suppressed demand won't be accepted. There will be a lot of problems related to people asking for work and not getting it, and that this can create a big backlash in terms of people finding narega not useful when they are in the most dire need of it. So this is one thing that we need to consider. So planning is something, next couple of months has to be the major thrust in narega. And for this, again, we have the same number of human resources, the same training that we had up till now for the next season of narega, post harvest season of narega. So this financial year we cannot live with the same planning, same HR, and um, same training. So we may have to increase our cost of administration also, especially in tribal areas where the communication is very difficult, where moving around is very difficult. And we have to remember that at least right now there is no state transport buses plying, at least in rural Maharashtra. I don't know about the rest of rural India, but with this, then how will even the local personnel who are working in Narega, like the Gram Rozgar Sevak or the technical assistants, how will they go to the block place and do their work if there are no state transport buses? Now, these are all the hardships that we have to live with. So it cannot be business as usual. We have to increase our planning process. We have to increase our HR if required, and in most of the places we do require it. And we will also have to think about convergence in a big way, because with value addition, people can find enhancement in their livelihoods. Simple things like if they can get shed from Narega, then they can also probably they should be given preference to getting whatever animals from the animal husbandry department. Or if they get farm ponds from Narega, then maybe they can get the plastic cover from agri department. Or if they have a good water storage structure in the village, then maybe the diesel engine and pipes that can move around for protective irrigation can be utilized, can be given to water users associations. Some kind of more creative thinking in convergence needs to come up. And we need to have in the planning works which are more related to community type of works, and which can absorb more and more of labor. Because, for example, we can spend more money in digging wells, definitely, but it doesn't absorb labor as much as, let's say, a bandara would do, a water storage structure would do. So these are the kind of aspects to be remembered for planning. So I would like to flag a couple of things: one, planning; two, HR; three, convergence; and four, then if the budget is inadequate, we have to increase that come what may. Then like most of the world-known economists are saying that it's okay to go beyond the norms of fiscal deficit this time, but we have to have money in the hands of people, both because of the COVID distress and two, because of the economic slowdown that we are facing. So what will NREGA do to us? With all this, we will definitely see that there will be more purchasing power because of the wages that are getting distributed in the villages. Now, with this comes the huge issue of delay in payments. Of course, they have introduced compensation, which is meager, but at least it is an acknowledgement of the fact that they can get late. But then how do we bring in more and more of banking correspondence or the last mile connectivity where people don't have to go to banks? Again, the issue is how will they go to banks without the state transport? And in the bank, with the given human resources being reduced, like only 1/3 of the people come to the banks to work every day, and then they don't allow too many people to come inside because of the physical distancing norms. Now, given this, how will our laborers go all the way into the bank and withdraw their money? So how can we have the Indian Postal Payment Bank or any other kind of banking correspondence, or maybe through self-help groups, reach out to people to provide them their wages in their villages and they don't have to travel? So these are also the kind of things that go into the planning. Assets that will be created are the basic thing for the rain-fed and small farmers. And we also see that most of these small farmers are the laborers on NREGA post-Kharif. Because, I mean, this is what we call the landed laborer. There is a big myth that only the landless laborers come on NREGA. That's not true. Over and over, we have seen that in the years, that lot of landed labor, the small and marginal rain-fed farmers, are the laborers on the under MGNREG. Now, given this, the kind of soil and water conservation works that can go in to enhance their quality of their land, quality of their farming, will really help them in increasing their livelihood opportunities in the years to come. Gram Panchayat has to be the unit of planning, which is not so. There are a lot of things that come from the central government and the state government, which are passed on as the focus areas, which is okay. But then additionally, let the Gram Panchayat also decide what they want to do. There can be a good mix of these two things. Finally, I would like to just flag one more important issue regarding NREGA, that we have to see that most of the works that get done under NREGA is based on local material that is used, local talent that is used, and people, of course, belong to the same village, right? So, and the utilization is in the same villages, be it a road, be it a water storage structure, or be it a shade. Who is using it? It's the same people who planned it, who constructed it, who built it, and they are also the users of it. And in all this process, we see that very little carbon footprint is created, which also means that just yesterday a report has come out which says that for climate resilience, the NREGA works have played a big role. So given all this, and given the challenges that we have, particularly in this year, we have to really pull our socks and get into planning in a big way. We might require more budget than this, and this seems to be the way forward as of today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. And you actually, in a way, answered a lot of questions that came in during our registrations. So, anyway, we'll pick up on a few questions after Pramatish Bhai has done talking. Sir, are you good to go?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I hope I am. Everybody is able to hear me. So, सबसे पहले वाटर प्रैक्टिशनर्स नेटवर्क को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. मुझे आपने यहाँ पे आमंत्रित किया. I just wanted to pick up from where Ashwini, the kind of directions that Ashwini was pointing to. आज देश एक बहुत बड़े संकट में है, इसका कोई इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं हो सकती. First of all, we were anyway going through an economic slump, and then the pandemic has hit us. The pandemic has basically meant uh, that there is a huge loss of livelihoods, apart from the health impact in terms of uh, the fact that people are falling ill, that so many are dying. जो इस पैंडेमिक से डील करने के लिए जो तरीका पूरा अपनाना पड़ा लॉकडाउन वगैरह का, उससे जो हमने एक रिवर्स माइग्रेशन का ट्रेंड देखा, वो शायद भारत के इतिहास में हमने पहली बार देखा. इट वाज अ ह्यूज reverse migration that took place from cities to villages. Apart from that, those who were living in villages, who were working there as farmers, etc., faced complete disruption in their value chains. या तो इनपुट कहाँ से आएगा, जबकि पूरा लॉकडाउन चल रहा है, तो जो इनपुट्स की आवश्यकता है तो वो नहीं मिलेगी फार्मर्स को. अगर क्रॉप प्रोडक्शन हो गया है तो जो प्रोड्यूस है उसको कहाँ बेचेंगे, कैसे लेके जाएंगे. हाउ दीज आर ऑल इश्यूज दैट आर फेसिंग अस टुडे. एंड even while production, I mean from our own experience of DRLF, अगर मैं देखूं तो प्रोडक्शन मान लीजिए किसी फसल का हो भी रहा है तो उसको कहाँ लेके जाएंगे और क्या प्राइस मिलेगा, ये एक बहुत बड़ा कोविड के बाद ये एक चैलेंज आ गया है. लेकिन कोविड से पहले भी मतलब स्थिति कोई बहुत खुशनुमा नहीं थी. मतलब हमारे छोटे सीमांत किसानों के लिए, हमारे लैंडलेस लेबरर्स के लिए, खास तौर से आदिवासी क्षेत्रों में. मैं आदिवासी क्षेत्रों का नाम इसलिए ले रहा हूँ बिकॉज दीज आर द पुअरेस्ट एंड द मोस्ट डिप्राइव्ड ज्योग्राफीज इन आवर कंट्री. स्पेशली जो सेंट्रल इंडियन ट्राइबल बेल्ट कहलाता है, जिसमें हमारे बहुत से बड़े राज्य आते हैं, मध्य प्रदेश, छत्तीसगढ़, झारखंड, उड़ीसा, पश्चिम बंगाल, राजस्थान, गुजरात के भी कुछ हिस्से हैं. और इनमें जो आदिवासी रहते हैं वो जमीन के मालिक होने के बावजूद भी उनकी स्थिति बहुत खराब है. अक्सर हम लोग वी टॉक अबाउट द डिफरेंस बिटवीन लैंडलेसनेस एंड लैंडेडनेस. हम पहले जब इकोनॉमिक्स वगैरह पढ़ाया जाता था तो उसमें एक लैंडलेसनेस की एक फिनोमिनन को अलग से डील किया जाता था. बट आज से 30 साल पहले जब मैंने और मेरे साथियों ने हमने आदिवासी इलाकों में काम करना शुरू किया तो हमने देखा कि लैंडलेसनेस की एक मजबूरी जो है वो तो है, लेकिन जो लैंडेड लोग हैं, जो आदिवासी हैं, उनके पास जमीन होने के बावजूद भी उनकी स्थिति बहुत खराब है. एंड दे हैव टू माइग्रेट. नाउ माइग्रेशन इज, आज की तारीख में ये फैशनेबल हो गया कहना कि माइग्रेशन इज aspirational, because everything has become aspirational in the last 20-25 years since India got integrated into the global economy and liberalization and privatization and globalization started. तो हम आजकल ये नहीं एक्नॉलेज करना चाहते कि कोई डिस्ट्रेस है जिसके कारण लोग अपने गाँव को छोड़ के बाहर पलायन कर रहे हैं. लेकिन हमारा जो एक्सपीरियंस है वो ये कहता है कि ये अधिकांश जो माइग्रेशन है, विशेष रूप से आदिवासी, मध्य भारत के आदिवासी क्षेत्रों से, the central Indian tribal belt, the out migration that takes place is invariably of distress. And there are some very, very, I mean, ऐसे एग्जाम्पल्स हमारे सामने आए हैं. 3-4 साल पहले, 5 साल पहले एक न्यूज़ आइटम आया था कि एक माइग्रेंट वर्कर जो उड़ीसा से आंध्र प्रदेश जा रहा था, उसके हाथ को काट दिया गया. जो लेबर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर था उसने हाथ काट दिया उसके, क्योंकि उसने कोई ड्यूज वापस नहीं किए थे या अपने वेजेस डिमांड किए थे. उड़ीसा में जो मेरे साथी हैं जो काम करते हैं, जो वेस्टर्न उड़ीसा में खास तौर से काम करते हैं, वो उनके लिए ये एक वेरी वेल नोन फिनोमिनन है दैट डिस्ट्रेस माइग्रेंट्स आर ट्रीटेड वेरी बैडली, दे आर पेड वेरी पुअर वेजेस, and the conditions of work at the destination site are terrible. Why would anybody want to migrate if this was indeed aspirational? So there are to all of these, there is an answer. I mean, first we have to understand why the problem arises. ये जो अधिकांश, मैं जिस बेल्ट की बात कर रहा हूँ, जो ये आदिवासी बेल्ट है, ये हमारे रेनफेड एरियाज का भी हिस्सा है. दे आर बोथ कोटर्मिनस. रेनफेड एरियाज इज अ लार्जर एरिया बिकॉज इट इंक्लूड्स नॉन आदिवासी एरियाज ऑल्सो. लेकिन अगर हम देखें तो बहुत हद तक रेनफेड, अगर हम रेनफेड एरियाज का मैप देखें और हम आदिवासी इंडिया का मैप देखें तो हम पाएंगे कि दोनों आपस में काफ़ी मतलब उन कोटर्मिनस. व्हाट डज दिस मीन? यहाँ पर सिंचाई की व्यवस्था नहीं है उन लोगों के लिए जो कि खेती करने के लिए जिनके पास जमीन है. बिकॉज द फार्मिंग इकोनॉमी इज इन अ बैड शेप. तो वहाँ पर जो उस इकोनॉमी पे डिपेंड करते हैं, चाहे वो लैंडलेस लेबरर्स हों, वो उन सब की भी हालत काफ़ी ख़राब है. अगर हम कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट्स करें पानी को लेकर के, वाटर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को क्रिएट करने के लिए, तो इस स्थिति को टर्न अराउंड किया जा सकता है. ये बहुत कोई बड़ी चीज़ मैं नहीं कह रहा, बल्कि जो इस देश में वाटरशेड प्रोग्राम शुरू हुआ था आज से बहुत साल पहले, बहुत दशक पहले, वो भी इसी समझ के साथ शुरू हुआ था कि सिंचाई की व्यवस्था बड़े बड़े बांधों से और हमने काफ़ी देश के काफ़ी हिस्सों तक पहुंचा दी. We have extended irrigation facilities to a large part of this country through construction of big dams and so on. But there is still a large part of the country which needs water, and for whom this is not going to be a source of water. This entire methodology of construction of dams. Also, साथ साथ हमारा जो पूरा जो सरकार के पास जितनी पूंजी थी वो भी खत्म होने लगी इन डैम्स के साथ. एक व्यवस्था, एक समस्या ये भी रही कि बहुत लंबे समय के बाद इनके बेनिफिट्स आते हैं, जब और तब तक कॉस्ट ओवररन्स वगैरह लगातार बढ़ते रहते हैं, डिस्प्लेसमेंट है, एनवायरमेंटल कॉस्ट है. वाटरशेड डेवलपमेंट ये कहता है कि वी नीड टू फोकस ऑन द लोकल इकोसिस्टम and regenerate it through locally available materials while providing employment to a large number of people, because all watershed technologies are labor intensive. मतलब हम ये ना समझें कि वाटरशेड टेक्नोलॉजी एक कच्चा काम है जो कि आजकल नरेगा के संदर्भ में बहुत लोग इस्तेमाल करते हैं. कच्चा काम कहते हैं. ये भी एक टेक्नोलॉजी है. इसमें भी बहुत एक हाई लेवल की एक्सपर्टीज. It requires a high level of expertise to engage and plan for an area of 1,000, 4,000, 5,000 hectares, whatever it is, intensively. तो इसमें भी एक स्किल की जरूरत है. तो ये जबकि हमारे पास एक मॉडल है, तो अब उसको लागू करने में अगर हम इसको सही तरीके से लागू करते हैं तो हम पाएंगे कि ये जो पानी की जो समस्या है ये काफ़ी हद तक उन लोगों के लिए सॉल्व की जा सकती है जिनके पास ज़मीन है, लेकिन जो पलायन करते हैं या वो ज़मीन पे पूरी तरह से निर्भर नहीं कर पाते हैं क्योंकि उनके पास सिंचाई का स्रोत नहीं है. उसी तरह से ऐसे बहुत सारे ज़मीनें हैं जो कि जो उबड़ खाबड़ है, जिनका बहुत बुरी तरह से जिसको हम कहते हैं सॉइल इरोजन has badly impacted the productivity of that land. Some small treatment can make this land productive again. So what is stopping us from making these investments in these areas? Actually, nothing should stop us. This is an investment that is badly needed in these geographies. Yet it took us almost I think about 6 decades after independence that we enacted something called the Employment Guarantee Act. And that promises at least 100 days of employment to all people in rural areas who demand this employment. तो ये हमारे पास एक मौका है. रोजगार हम किसी भी रूप में दे सकते हैं और उसके लिए हम पैसे दे सकते हैं उस व्यक्ति के लिए जो काम पे आया है. लेकिन इससे बेहतर ये होगा कि हम उस रोजगार को ऐसे एवेन्यूज में चैनलाइज करें. वी यूज टेक्नोलॉजीज and location specific planning to create employment and to put livelihoods on a sustainable basis, right? तो एक तरह से हमारे पास हक आया है रोजगार गारंटी कानून के पास होने से। सारे लोग जो कि इन इलाकों में काम करते हैं, वो लोग जो इन गरीब लोगों के साथ खड़े हैं, काम करते हैं, उनके पास एक अब इस कानून के माध्यम से एक ऐसा हथियार है जिससे वो एम्प्लॉयमेंट डिमांड कर सकते हैं। लेकिन हमारा मानना ये है कि एम्प्लॉयमेंट डिमांड करने से एक स्टेप आगे की अगर हम सोचें और इसको एक इफ वी सी इट एज अ ह्यूज अपॉर्चुनिटी टू एक्चुअली बिल्ड सस्टेनेबल लाइवलीहुड्स in the rural areas through proper planning and by ensuring water security first, और ये किया जा सकता है, इसमें ऐसी कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है। गैप जो क्रिटिकल है वो ये है कि हमारे जो सबसे गरीब इलाके हैं उसमें स्टेट्स के पास इतनी कैपेसिटी नहीं है कि वो ऐसे प्रोग्राम्स को मैनेज कर सके, प्लान कर सके, एग्जीक्यूट कर सके। It is a fact, and studies have established this also, that the poorest areas of our country are also where state capacities are severely limited. आपके पास या तो ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज नहीं है, ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज हैं तो उनके उस तरह के स्किल सेट्स नहीं है जो कि चाहिए। Remember, I am not just talking about normal type of NREGA, Employment Guarantee Plan, जो कि पहले भी फूड फॉर वर्क वगैरह में चलता था, जिसमें आप फोटोकॉपी करके एक ही चीज को हजारों गांव में लेके जा सकते थे और किसी को कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता कि क्या हो रहा है क्या नहीं हो रहा है। ये हम एक लोकेशन स्पेसिफिक वाटरशेड बेसिस पे प्लानिंग और एग्जीक्यूशन की बात कर रहे हैं। यहाँ पे एक एक्सपर्टीज की आवश्यकता है और वो एक्सपर्टीज कैन ओनली दैट कैपेसिटी चैलेंज कैन ओनली बी बिल्ट थ्रू अ ह्यूज पार्टनरशिप बिटवीन the state and civil society organizations. भारत रूरल लाइवलीहुड फाउंडेशन में मैं आया हूँ और हम लोग इसी सोच पे पिछले 3-4 सालों से काम कर रहे हैं कि अगर सरकार और सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस साथ मिलके काम करें तो पानी की जो पूरी एक सुरक्षा की जो बात है उसको हम सुनिश्चित कर सकते हैं। We can ensure water security and build livelihoods on top, not just for farmers, small and marginal, but also for the landless. There is a basis created for a host of livelihoods interventions through convergence mode. लेकिन BRLF में आने से पहले मैं और अश्विनी जिस नेटवर्क के हिस्सा हैं उसका नाम है नेशनल कंसोर्शियम ऑफ सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस ऑन NREGA, और हमारे काम का उद्देश्य यही था। उन दिनों नरेगा की शुरुआत थी और हमको ये लगा था कि सरकार ने पैसा तो बहुत उपलब्ध करा दिया है ग्राम पंचायत को। द ग्राम पंचायत सडनली हैड एक्सेस टू अ लॉट ऑफ फंड्स, बट वेयर इज द wherewithal for them to do a proper job. आज से बहुत साल पहले जब समाज प्रगति सहयोग ने आदिवासी क्षेत्रों में काम शुरू किया था तो हमने पाया था कि मतलब कहने को हमने डिसेंट्रलाइजेशन कर दिया by handing over drinking water hand pumps to the panchayat, but the panchayat didn't have anybody to maintain or repair those hand pumps. So the poor people, when their hand pumps failed, they had to go back to the same public health engineering department for repairs of the hand pump. तो ये एक समस्या, एक चुनौती है। तो कंसोर्शियम का ये एक उद्देश्य था कि हम ये अपने काम से दिखाएं कि अगर सिविल सोसाइटी और ग्राम पंचायत मिलकर काम करे तो ये कैपेसिटी का जो इशू है, सिविल सोसाइटी का रोल एक फैसिलिटेटिंग सहयोगी रोल रहेगा, वो ग्राम पंचायत की मदद करेगी इन प्रिपेयरिंग एंड एग्जीक्यूटिंग प्रॉपर प्लान्स अंडर NREGs, and I must say that we were able to showcase a lot of such examples of success. When I came to BRLF, I thought we should try and extend this thinking, this vision. And that's how, while in the initial years, BRLF was working on standalone partnerships with NGOs. Over the last 3 years since I joined, our emphasis has been on bringing state governments who are in charge of implementation of major flagship government programs and civil society together. तो इसमें सबसे पहले हमारी शुरुआत हुई थी पश्चिम बंगाल से, जहाँ के NREGA कमिश्नर ने BRLF को अप्रोच किया and he said that look, in the Himalayan regions, there are springs, natural springs, which are now drying up. These are, I am talking about districts such as Darjeeling, Kalimpong, Alipurdwar, Jalpaiguri. यहाँ पे natural springs हैं जो कि अब जिनका catchment बहुत बुरी तरह से ध्वस्त हो चुका है. It has been, completely because of deforestation and many other problems. And these are the main sources of drinking water, the springs. So can we do something about it? Anything that is required for rejuvenation in terms of program expenses, I will give from MGNREGA. So, but all I want is कि आप लोग सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के पार्टनरशिप में हमारे मदद करें, और ये सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो हमारे फ्रंटलाइन एनआरईजीएस वर्कर्स हैं, जिनको हम धारा सेवक्स कहते हैं, उनका हैंड होल्डिंग, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग करें, so that they are able to rejuvenate these springs on their own. We thought it was a great idea. We partnered, हमारे साथ एक्वाडैम और प्रसारी, दो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हमारे जुड़े, और हम लोगों ने वहाँ पे लगातार पिछले 4 सालों से बहुत सारे धारा सेवकों की ट्रेनिंग की है. Now this is the kind of capacity building effort that is required. You see, if the NGOs were to do this spring shed development, it would happen. But in order for this to scale up, I think it is extremely important that the state's capacities are built. And through this partnership, this was made possible. We have trained many Dhara Sevaks there, and the results have started showing up. The spring discharge in even some of the very low discharge springs has increased by about 40%. And in some of the better springs, it has come up by about 200%. तो कमिश्नर जो वो बहुत खुश हुए इसके रिजल्ट्स को देखते हुए, और उन्होंने कहा कि इस पूरे अप्रोच को हम बड़े स्केल पे लेके जाना चाहते हैं. The same thing, he said, today's wages, tomorrow's livelihoods. Can NREGA be used to create water security in the most poor areas of West Bengal, which is the Paschimachal area, in the western part of the state, Jungle Mahal जिसको broadly हम लोग कहते हैं. हमने कहा हाँ क्यों नहीं कर सकते. तो he said watershed basis पे on the same model we should work in these 6 districts, and he outlined 55 blocks where we should work on a priority basis. We have many partners in West Bengal who are working on this concept. Pradhan is leading the entire effort. The program was given a separate name called Ushar Mukti, yani freedom from barrenness. It's very difficult to translate this correctly, accurately. But this program started in 2017, and by now a lot of work has happened in these 55 blocks, and I'm glad to say that this has happened through the participation of the panchayat leaders, the community, the civil society organizations, and state government. Why is this kind of partnership important? We see this when we see Ushar Mukti in action. आज मैं आपको थोड़ा सा आंकड़ा देना चाहता हूँ. इन 55 ब्लॉक्स में पिछले 3 सालों में जो हमारा BRLF का इन्वेस्टमेंट है, वो मॉडल क्या है कि BRLF सिविल सोसाइटी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के खर्चे के लिए धनराशि मुहैया कराती है, और जितने भी प्रोग्रामेटिक एक्सपेंडिचर है जो कि जमीन पे होता है, दैट इज प्रोवाइडेड बाय द NREGS head. Now in Ushar Mukti, there has already been an expenditure of about 342 crore rupees from NREGS against an investment made by us of only 9.5 crore rupees. अगर हम इसको कंपेयर करें तो हमारे द्वारा दिया हुआ 1 रुपया जो कि सिविल सोसाइटी के फैसिलिटेशन कॉस्ट पे है, जिसका अधिकांश हिस्सा कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग पे खर्च हो रहा है थ्रू डायरेक्ट और इनडायरेक्ट ट्रांसफर्स ऑफ स्किल्स, अगर हम देखें तो हम ये पाएंगे कि ये 1 रुपया का छोटा सा इन्वेस्टमेंट ये सुनिश्चित करता है that about 36 rupees of government are spent well and the benefits reach on the ground. Now this is the kind of effort that is required. About 2,000, we are hoping that in the next 2 or 3 years, about 2,000 Dhara Sevaks who are engaged in this entire Ushar Mukti effort will be empowered. And even when the civil society organizations withdraw from that entire program, these Dhara Sevaks are going to be permanent assets with the state government. And I think that is the kind of path we should attempt to take. And it becomes even more important in these times, in the coming 1 year or 2 years, when the entire rural economy is devastated by Corona, to think of this kind of a model where transfer of learnings take place, where skills are, and capacities are developed, and where proper planning and execution are done so as to ensure sustainable livelihoods. 2017 में ये काम शुरू हुआ और उसकी लोगों के बीच में बात शुरू हुई तो छत्तीसगढ़ के पंचायत रूरल डेवलपमेंट सेक्रेटरी और एनआरईजीएस कमिश्नर वो अचानक से उन्होंने बीआरएल को कांटेक्ट किया कि भाई हम ये छत्तीसगढ़ में क्यों नहीं कर सकते जो आप ऊषर मुक्ति बंगाल में कर रहे हैं. He actually went to see this work in West Bengal along with a team of his officers, and he felt, "Arey, this is something which is definitely doable. So why don't we do this in Chhattisgarh?" तो हमने कहा बिल्कुल हम करने के लिए तैयार हैं. So in 2018 we signed an MOU with the state government. We brought in 13 CSO partners who are working in 26 blocks of the state. और अभी शुरुआत में तो प्लानिंग वगैरह का काम चल रहा था, बट अब काफ़ी DPRs प्रिपेयर हो गए हैं. एंड आई एम अगेन हैप्पी टू से दैट अभी तक जितना खर्चा हुआ है वो करीब 55 करोड़ रुपए का खर्चा हुआ है, और जितने जो सैंक्शन मिल चुका है वो करीब 238 करोड़ रुपए का सैंक्शन मिल चुका है. अगेन एट अ वेरी स्मॉल एक्सपेंडिचर. It is roughly the same type of leverage that one is talking about, 1 rupees to about 40 rupees of state expenditure. State government has committed nearly 1200 crore rupees over a period of 4 years, at least from MGNREGA. तो ये मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है कि ये जो 1 रुपए का खर्चा है जो हम BRLF कर रहा है, ये उस 40 रुपए के खर्चे में बहुत significant role अख्तियार करता है. Why? Because this 1 rupee actually ensures that proper planning and proper capacity building takes place in the entire state mechanism. So if you look at these figures, you will find that the 5-6% of so-called administrative costs, which is provided under MGNREGA, is actually more than sufficient to really generate the kind of capacity building, planning support that is required to ensure that 94% of MGNREGA funds are utilized well. And this is the real challenge. COVID or beyond COVID, if you look at it, the issue of capacities and proper planning and grassroots, and सिर्फ ये supply side issue नहीं है. मैं गलती करूंगा अगर मैं ये ना मेंशन करूं कि डिमांड साइड पे भी एक इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट रोल. अश्विनी ने आपको चार्ट्स दिखाए अबाउट डिमांड फॉर वर्क एंड सप्लाई फॉर वर्क. एक चीज आपको नजर आएगी होगी कि दे आर मोर और लेस ऑलवेज इक्वल. एंड द रीजन व्हाई दिस इज द केस इज कि ये पोस्ट फैक्टो दोनों फिगर्स हमारे MIS में एंटर किए जाते हैं. मतलब जब काम हो जाता है तब वो उसको बैठ के ऐड किया जाता है और उसको चढ़ाया जाता है. दिस वाज द वर्क डिमांडेड, दिस इज द वर्क सप्लाइड. एंड दिस इज अ वेरी simple way of saying that all demand has been met so that nobody gets into trouble. It is also a simple way of actually completely sidestepping the issue of ever having to admit that the financial resources that we have committed to NREG are a little less. You see, ये एक vicious cycle में चलती है. मतलब 2-3 साल पहले 4 साल पहले न्यूज़पेपर में एक खबर आई थी कि मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रूरल डेवलपमेंट की तरफ से एक व्हाट्सएप कम्युनिकेशन सारे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स को गया कि भाई जरा डिमांड पे कंट्रोल रखो. बाद में मिनिस्ट्री ने उसको रिट्रैक्ट किया और उसके लिए खेद व्यक्त किया. लेकिन एक because the resources are already decided during the creation of the budget, there is a tacit understanding that we should try and limit demand. And therefore, if unlimited demand is expressed by people, and it all reflects on the website, then it will become a very difficult situation. लेकिन actually यथार्थ ये है कि काम की मांग कहीं ज़्यादा है और हमारे पास अभी तक उस तरह की क्षमता नहीं है किसी भी कारण से कि हम उस पूरे डिमांड को मीट कर सकें, और ये डिमांड बढ़ने वाली है। तो 1 लाख करोड़ रुपया जो इस साल फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर ने घोषणा की है, इसका तो स्वागत करते हैं, लेकिन शायद इससे ज़्यादा पैसे की आवश्यकता पड़ेगी। और इससे ज़्यादा ये एक मौका जो कोविड ने हमको दिया है, उसको हम वी हैव टू सीज दिस अपॉर्चुनिटी बाय ब्रिंगिंग इनटू प्लेस those mechanisms that we badly need to make MGNREGA a huge success, especially in providing water security for the large mass of those people who are living in tribal central India, the rain-fed areas of our country, who are also the poorest and most deprived. So, and in this, I feel the best way forward would be for civil society and state governments to come together. That is what we have learned from our experience. तो मैं अभी अपने आप को रोकता हूँ और I will be happy to respond to any questions that people may have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, both of you, from speaking your own experience, from your hands-on experience of working on the act with several communities across the country. And thank you, sir. So I'll just pick on a few questions that we've received. आपने बहुत कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के उस पर भी काफ़ी बोला, BRLF का भी काफ़ी काम हमको हमारे साथ शेयर किया, बट अभी जैसे वी सी दैट सिटीज आर नाउ एंटरिंग इन एन अनलॉक मोड, एंड जो लोग वापस गांव आए थे अब वो वापस शहर भी जा रहे हैं. So there is this constant debate of how the days 100 days should now be extended to 200 days. But a recurring question that we have received from people is that are these 200 days of work plan feasible given the current state of economy that we are in? And so that is one question. And the other question is also that a lot of proposals have been drafted by a group of ministers on employment and skill development with regard to NREGA. तो जैसे लैंड पूलिंग का मॉडल पे बात कर रहे हैं, एंड हाउ पीपल आर डिमांडिंग एन अर्बन अवतार ऑफ नरेगा इन द इनफॉर्मल सेक्टर इन द अर्बन एरियाज, जिसके बारे में आप दोनों ने भी काफ़ी लिखा है और काफ़ी चर्चा हुई है मीडिया पे. बट आई वुड लाइक यू टू answer these two questions about, first, about the 200 days of work plan and how the feasibility given the current state of economy, and second will be the other reforms that are being proposed. Yeah, those are the two questions for now.
तो मैं इसकी शुरुआत करता हूँ. देखिए 100 दिन है, 200 दिन है, मतलब actually this is a demand based program. The act says that 100 days will be provided on demand. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't go beyond 100 days. बहुत सारे पिछले सालों में हमने देखा है कि काफ़ी सारे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट्स, जैसे ओडिशा स्टेट गवर्नमेंट में, ये देखते हुए कि बहुत भयंकर ड्राउट हो रहा है कुछ इलाकों में, उन्होंने 150 दिन का गारंटी भी किया है. Whether it is 100 or 200, you see, is not really the issue. The issue really is कि how do you plan to make sure that these 100 days or 200 days are provided. We have not actually managed to reach 100 days on a national basis as an average even now. If you look at the average of previous years, it is hovering around 40-50, right? There were some years in which in Adivasi areas, the actual person days generated was systematically going down. And that should not be read as a indicator of the fact कि सारा काम हो गया, अब सब आदिवासी लोगों को काम की ज़रूरत नहीं है. काम की ज़रूरत है. The issue is how will you go about providing this employment, and do we have the capacity? And then once you provide the employment, what do you do with it? किस फॉर्म में ये employment embody होगा? मतलब हम कुछ भी काम करा के wages दे दें, ये भी एक तरीका हो सकता है. It is about pushing money in the hands of the poor, which is welcome. But if you want to make build sustainable livelihoods, then you'll have to create assets. And do we have the skills at the village level to tackle the task at hand, which is huge, which is humongous? So मेरे हिसाब से वो एक ज़रूरी चीज़ है. तो मैं ये नहीं कह रहा कि ये परसेंटेज नहीं बढ़ाने चाहिए या हमको पहले इंतजार करना चाहिए, पहले अपनी कैपेसिटीज इंप्रूव करनी चाहिए, फिर परसेंटेज बढ़ाने चाहिए. The two can go hand in hand, but we have to have a plan in place for creating these capacities. The issue of urban employment guarantee, I mean, if we can do it, why not? But what Ashwini and I have written in a recent article is that the business of trying to change the design and structure of MGNREGA, that is not something we favor. You see, either to subsidize small and medium industries, enterprises, जिनको बहुत बड़ा वेज शॉक लगा है, वो बंद हो गए हैं बेचारे, तो हम नरेगा का इस्तेमाल करके उनको सब्सिडाइज करें, वेज सब्सिडीज दें, या हम अर्बन एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी एक्ट और रूरल एम्प्लॉयमेंट गारंटी एक्ट को मिला दें. NREG was created for a specific problem, to address a specific problem of rural unemployment, rural livelihoods, and it should remain there. As far as the Urban Employment Guarantee Act is, we can think about it. The issue is who's going to be the implementer. And normally जितने भी urban areas में काम वगैरह होते हैं through contractors होते हैं. तो अब क्या, जैसे हमारे यहाँ पे ग्राम पंचायत, गाँव में ग्राम पंचायत मेन इम्प्लीमेंटिंग एजेंसी है और वो लोगों को काम देती है, तो क्या अब हम सोच रहे हैं म्यूनिसिपल कॉर्पोरेशन वगैरह इस तरह की चीज़ें करेंगे, और वो करेंगे तो कैसे करेंगे, किस तरह के एसेट्स बनेंगे, हमको एसेट्स कैसे चाहिए रूरल एरियाज में जिसके ऊपर हम काम दे सकते हैं, क्योंकि अगर सड़क वड़क बनाने का काम है या घर बनाने का काम है, that is already of a certain type. So I don't know whether municipal council driven employment guarantee program, which is participatory in nature and primarily aimed at providing wages, can do justice to these demands. But I mean, if people can work it out, why not?
Yes. Ma'am, do you have anything to add on?
No, I do agree with what Pramatesh had just said. I will only add this, that as far as the whether do we have that fiscal space, whether do we have those finances to go from 100 to 200 or whatever. And like we know, we have hovered around 50 average per family, per household. So let us first go up to 100. We have not made provision for that. If you look at the budget right now, there is no provision for all those households who want to work, that they can work for 100 days. That much budget has not been kept. Point one. And two, even if people want to more work, they should definitely get it. It's a guarantee that you have promised. And now this year at least, consider this as a not extraordinary year and don't think about fiscal deficit. This is what all the economists are saying, including Dr. Raghuram Rajan, including Dr. Abhijit Banerjee. Everybody is saying that there is no need to consider fiscal deficit this year, and we can increase the budgets if required, because this is one very good way of ensuring that the real needy get all the money that comes in. This is self-targeted, so we know where the money is going. So in that sense, I suppose budget is not a constraint, cannot be a constraint.
मैं इसमें ये ऐड करना चाहता हूँ कि बजट should not be a constraint, because actually हम जो deficit financing की जो बात कर रहे हैं, once we put money in the hands of the poor, it is spent and it acts as a catalyst to the rest of the economy. So to be able to produce more in response to the demand that comes about. I mean, there is an anecdote, I don't know how much it is true, but a few years ago, when there was some talk that MGNREGA budget should be cut, I believe it is some of the a lobby led by FMCG industry, which went to the finance minister and pleaded with him, don't cut down MGNREGA because a lot of our stuff is being sold in rural areas and the demand is coming from there. So, I mean, I think it's certainly not the time to think of, the budget deficit and bother too much about that. If need arises and if we are prepared to cater to the demand, we must certainly go ahead and make provisions, financial provisions.
Thank you. So there's another question which was some way or the other addressed in your talk also. So one of our participants asked, why isn't the village panchayat development plan and NREGA more closely linked? While market dynamics seem to have a larger diktat on the jobs creation, the governance of local natural resources, which was originally given much importance, has been somewhere diluted on the way. How can that happen better?
I think there are two things in this. Actually, right now, GPDP says that they should spend almost 50% of their plan allocation, this 15 commission allocation, financial commission allocation on water related works. So that can definitely go with NREGA, and then we can have better works in the villages. That's one thing which is definitely feasible in this.
I mean, Ashwini has already answered this, so we can go on to the next question.
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. So another question is that what are the successful examples of the program that can be replicated? You spoke about the BRLF examples at length, but other programs, general examples from across the country that can be replicated?
Yeah, we have seen quite a few during our consortium. Whenever we had some cross learning, we met people from different organizations from different states, and we could get to see that even at an individual level, when their livelihood opportunities increase, like if there is a pond and they do fisheries, then it adds another layer of income opportunity to that household. So these individual level things, and also at the village level, you can see that roads bring in the fact that they can take their produce with lesser time and with lesser drudgery to the nearest market. Or especially the water storage structures have played a big role. Women, if you go and talk to women and if you tell them about water storage structures which is nearer to their habitat, it definitely means much less drudgery for the women there, because they then don't have, like I have one example in our villages where they had to go in summer down the hill, get water from there. And when we were planning for NREGA works there, women came and said, don't talk about anything else, we want a road there to that well, because that's where we get water. And that was the road that was built first in that village. So these are the kind of examples which could be scattered, but there are many such examples which will tell us that it has directly had an impact on individual households as well as villages.
मैं अश्विनी ने महिलाओं की बात की तो मैं उसमें जोड़ना चाहता हूँ। नेशनल कंसोर्टियम के एक पार्टनर है, पानी नाम की संस्था है, उत्तर प्रदेश में वो काम कर रहे हैं। 9 जिलों में उनका काम फैला हुआ है और करीब 1.25 लाख महिलाएं, गरीब महिलाएं, दलित महिलाएं, लैंडलेस परिवारों से आई हुई महिलाएं उस पूरे एफर्ट की एक हिस्सा है जो कि नारी संघ कहलाती है। नेशनल कंसोर्टियम ऑन MGNREGA ने एक फिल्म भी बनाई है इस पूरे प्रोसेस पे। और हम जबकि सक्सेस की बात करते हैं तो वी look at it in terms of the normally the how many water storage structures and irrigation etc. But इसकी जो empowering impacts हैं, especially on women, अगर हम इन नारी संघ की महिलाओं से बात करें, then we'll understand that the space that NREGA provides for organizing, creating organizations of the poor is huge, especially of women. And these are the women who are driving change in their villages by insisting on accountability. It's not just about insisting on this or that asset. It's an insistence on accountability from their local governments, from their block administrations, from the NREGA's commissioner. And the other thing that I talked to one of them and I asked her, why are you into this? If your family is, अगर आपके परिवार में कपड़े सिलने का काम है तो आप वो क्यों नहीं करती? She says, कपड़े सिलने में तो ठीक है, पैसे मिलेंगे, लेकिन यहाँ पर हमको हम अगर चाहें तो हम जब चाहें हम कलेक्टर के ऑफिस में जाकर के अपनी मांग रख सकते हैं। ये एक बहुत बड़ी, और हम अपने गांव से बाहर निकलने का हमको मौका मिलता है और लोगों से के साथ काम करने का मौका मिलता है। तो I mean these are also impacts, and also studies have shown the other impacts. Like there is the MGNREGA wage itself may be lower than the wages that a lot of work sites provide, but it is a floor. It sets the floor on rural wages. And in public works programs, women have always have started getting higher wages than men ever since MGNREGA came about. It is a preferred source of employment for women as well. So these are some of the successes that we can think about. I can only add that you see more examples of this success when you see government and civil society coming together.
Thank you so much. So we'll just take a couple of more questions. So another question is, somebody's written, we have seen in the past and in recent times that there is a demand from farmer organizations to include agricultural work as a part of NREGA, by which wages for agriculture workers could be paid through the program. While this would subsidize the wage bills of farmers, including large and commercial farmers, this may also weaken the bargaining power of workers in the rural labor market. Do you think NREGA should take this turn? What will be the consequences of doing this?
Ah, there is never a platform where this question is not discussed. All training programs everywhere I've seen this, but I think both of us will have something to say on this. Couple of years back, even Government of India considered this, that can we have NREGA even for routine agriculture work, like cultivation practices, whatever you do, sowing or harvesting, weeding, whatever. Now, there are a couple of things to think about in this. For one, the Act says that we should have productive assets. Assets. And here, what we are doing is a routine recurring work, which is, how can we measure that? Like when there is a pond, we know it is there even after 4 or 5 years if we go there. So there is something asset that remains there. Now here, how will you measure? That's one challenge. Second is, and basically, is it desirable? That's one part of it. And is it doable? That is another part of this question. So is it desirable? Consider this. We are talking only about 100 days per family in one financial year. Now, Kharif is already 4 5 months of work where they work on each other's farms, on their own farm, earn during Kharif also as laborers. And after post Kharif, they will gain more money out of this additional employment. So NREGA has to be an additional employment, additional to the Kharif labor that they already do. But if we pull NREGA into Kharif itself, then where is the additional thing? So we are just replacing what the other farmer is giving by what government will give. That's one thing. So who are we subsidizing? We are subsidizing farmers and not laborers. Now comes the question, if we really want labor, what we are actually talking about is labor subsidy. But if we want labor subsidy, let's ask for labor subsidy. Why should it be under NREGA? Or let's say, look at the Kisan Sanman. If it is giving us 6,000 rupees per farmer family, let's say, let them give them 10,000 or 15,000 rupees per year. That can be a labor subsidy. But why are we bringing labor subsidy under NREGA, where NREGA is talking about productive assets and where NREGA is talking about additional employment, additional gainful, meaningful employment? So that's one thing. Another thing is it really doable? Imagine who will gain from this, who will have access to those block level people, where they will go and say, okay, on my farm for 1 acre, so many people work for so many days. How will you measure? When will you measure? How will you know that whether it was X farmers for Y days? So why are we, this is like opening a Pandora's box in NREGA. So let's not mix these two things. If we want labor subsidy, let's demand labor subsidy separately. Let NREGA be what it is. NREGA has a big role to play and big potential to play that role.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, would you want to add something to that?
Yes, I agree with what Ashwini has said. And I feel that there is going to be a huge problem in terms of measurement. I find it very surprising that and public opinion seems to always talk in two voices. जब नरेगा की बात शुरू हुई तब ये हुआ कि ये क्या कर रहे हैं, ये तो डोल है, ये प्रोडक्टिव नहीं है, एंड दिस इज आजकल एक नया टर्म चला हुआ है, पॉवर्टेरियनिज्म कहते हैं इसको. दिस इज अबाउट कीपिंग पीपल इन पॉवर्टी एंड दिस इज व्हाट सोशलिस्ट लाइक टू डू एटसेट्रा व्हाटएवर दैट मीन्स. एंड ये सब एक ऐसी पैसा फेंकने की बात है, इससे तो कुछ प्रोडक्टिव निकलने नहीं वाला है. रियल व्हाट इज रियली रिक्वायर्ड इज to do things which rejuvenate the economy and bring it back on strong footing instead of making people dependent on those. दूसरी तरफ जबकि एक तबके को जरूरत होती है तो वो हमेशा सब्सिडी की बातें करनी शुरू कर देता है. तो मुझे समझ में नहीं आता कि ये इस तरह की चीज का मतलब क्या है. See, the kind of model that we have about MGNREGA is fundamentally empowering. It puts those who are poorest and on a footing that they are able to participate in the economy. Actually, it is not a socialist fantasy. If you like, it is about participating in capitalism on a little more equal footing, creating opportunities. Socialism तो अभी बहुत दूर की बात है. तो जबकि हम वो बात करते हैं जिससे कि एग्रीकल्चर साउंड फुटिंग पे आए, पानी की सुरक्षा हो सबसे सीमांत और छोटे किसानों को, और वहीं पर गांव में ही रोजगार मुहैया हो, इस तरह की वाइब्रेंसी एक रूरल इकोनॉमी में आए, तो दैट शुड टेक केयर ऑफ अ लॉट ऑफ दीज कंसर्न्स. एंड why should we expect that those who have farms which are big enough to employ labor from outside in substantial numbers to actually want a wage subsidy component? Why should we want to subsidize those farms? I don't get it. So in order to make MGNREGA more relevant to agriculture, a lot of work was done in the years 2013-14 when a enhanced set of works was added, permissible works was added to the the MGNREGA basket, in which all kinds of things such as soil improvement, even poultry sheds, cow sheds, etc. were added. And those should be taken advantage of, but at least they are measurable. There is no chance of corruption, or there is no chance of benefits being usurped by those who don't deserve those benefits. So this is what I feel.
Thank you. So one last question that we'll take. So many people are asking that, what are the reforms needed in the coming 5 years or in the future to ensure that NREGA performs to its potential? I think that will be the closing question, and both of you are invited to speak on it.
I have already said some of that. I think the crucial question is still of capacities, and capacities in both senses of planning, the supply side set of things which requires proper planning, proper execution. वो एक चीज है. दूसरी कैपेसिटी है कि हमको उस तरह की कैपेसिटी गांव के स्तर पे क्रिएट करनी पड़ेगी और मोबिलाइज करें लोगों को कि इस पैसे का उपयोग हमारे लिए हो और हमारे हित में हो और सबसे बेहतर तरीके से. So that is one of the key bottlenecks. Other bottlenecks relate to things like timely wage payments. Wage payments tend to get delayed, and that breaks the confidence of people. You see, जो लोग, खास तौर से वो लोग जो माइग्रेट करते हैं, उनको वो इसलिए माइग्रेट करते हैं कि उनको जब पैसा चाहिए, पैसा अगर नहीं मिले उनको, तो वो वहां जाते हैं जहां पे उनको इमीडिएटली पैसा मिलेगा. इमीडिएट कैश रिक्वायरमेंट इज अ बिग ड्राइवर. अगर हम ये चीज हम काम समय से ना खोल पाए और काम का भुगतान समय से ना कर पाए और पूरे पैसे ना दे पाए लोगों को, तो एक बहुत बड़ा डिस्करेजमेंट है उनको वो काम करने. So I think if we address some of these challenges, we can go a long way.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Ma'am, same question. Just one more thing to it. Can you also speak from your own experience about the role of NREGA in providing employment to women? So,
in fact, there was also a question: can only women work? Yes. I mean, there's nothing like only, I mean, there has to be a mixed group. Only women can also work on NREGA. And consider this in terms of women, I will add a little bit that this is the only program. If women go with their men on any farm work or anywhere else, they always get paid less than the man does, right? We know the wages are different for men and women laborers across rural India, whether it is irrigated belt or not. Given this, what does NREGA promise women? One, work near their house. So they are in a familiar background, and also they are with their familiar people. They are with the people of their own village, of their own community. So they feel safe there. They can get their children to the work site who are taken care of under the NREGA Act. Women can bring their children and children will be taken care of. They'll be provided drinking water. They will be provided shade. So women have better work facilities, work environment in NREGA rather than going for distress migration any day. We did a simple survey 2 years back of 600 women in 3 blocks, and we only asked them that what would you prefer, going into the cities or working on NREGA in the village. They said even if we get double wages in the cities, we don't want to go. We want to stay in the village and work on NREGA. That way we can take care of our animals, we can take care of our elderly, our children continue to go to school, we continue to get ICDS, we continue to get ration, we continue to get vaccinations. So they were very clear that they would like to stay back rather than go for distress migration, even if it gives them double, because they know they spend more in the cities rather than when they are in the villages. That's one part of it. And the second part is what needs to be done is, again, I will emphasize on planning, planning, planning. It should not be that work is demanded, so give something and khatam kar do. Otherwise, what happens is like the delay payments are a discouragement. Another discouragement is that I've asked for work, I've got work, I have worked for 10, 12, 15 days, and for the next work, I have to wait for another couple of weeks because it won't start on time. Now, given this ad hocism in the planning of works is detrimental in two ways. One, it discourages laborers to demand work, and in two, it diminishes the potential what NREGA can do in terms of asset building. So planning, capacity building of local people to do that planning, and also the execution of works. These are the kind of things that can go in a big way. Government of India, NRD, did try something called barefoot engineers and barefoot technicians, but this has to go a long way. It can't be a one-time thing. It has to be done over and over again. The training, selection training of local talent, and their their involvement in execution. So I would emphasize on two things: planning, and for planning, capacity building of local talent, and two, convergence. Now, NREGA in itself is not easy to implement because it requires a lot of coordination, because it's like a clockwork. Works have to be started on time, a measurement has to be done on time, payments have to go into the banks have to make payments through banking correspondence. So a lot of entities have to come together for those 15 days cycle to keep running, which is not easy, and which is not something that agencies, government departments are used to doing. And on top of that, we're talking about convergence with other departments. So this kind of work environment needs to be brought in consciously and with speed into the departments for NREGA to reach its fullest potential. And after this 10, 12, 15 years of NREGA, almost 13 years of NREGA in across India, it's time we get into this and spend more on planning in terms of times, resources, efforts on planning, capacity building, and convergence.
Thank you so much, both of you. And we've had very active participation from people constantly writing questions and comments, and a lot of them telling that, this is a very important session for them, given the critical juncture that we all are at. So I would just like to, say a big thank you to both of you for giving us your time, such valuable insights. And since a lot of people are still asking questions on YouTube also, So I'll just request everybody that they can write all their questions to us. They can mail it to us, and we can share those questions with you. And if in your own time, you can respond to some of the questions. And I'm sure it helps. It will help in the long run of advocacy also that we all are involved in. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir. Is there any question that you think you still want to address? Any question that remain unanswered, and you have particular interest in
Well,
responding to
I
it?
mean, I was looking at some of the
Yeah.
questions. I've tried to answer some of them about how Gram Panchayats have been strengthened, how women have benefited, etc., and about this whole business of government functionaries being pulled into different activities because of which they are not able to work in a focused manner in NREGs. A lot of the questions I noticed have, I think, been answered by some of the points that Ashwini and I were talking about. But in case there is anything more, I would be happy to respond to them on email or whatever.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people who are attending are practitioners in any case in their own right and know what's going on in the field. So they don't really have to depend upon us answering questions and so on. But I'll be happy if more such things come.
Yes.
It's just
Thank
that
you.
I will only appeal to all the practitioners that this year is very important and difficult. So let's give more thrust to this.
Yes. So thank you also, Aditi,
Thanks a lot.
and the
Yeah.
Water Practitioners Network for having us here. It was a very enjoyable session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.
Thank you.
And for all the people attending it, we are sharing our email address where you can write to us. We're also sharing the website link where you can, associate yourself with the network. And we'll keep organizing more such webinars with different speakers on different issues, which have a direct and indirect bearing on water and other natural resource management issues across the country. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody. So we have also shared the link of the films made by the SPS Community Media Wing on NREGA, and it's really insightful. You can watch it. Yes, we've also shared the email address right here, and you can write to us with all the questions. We'll try to engage our speakers. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll be posting all the recording on all our social platforms, so you can stay in touch. Yes, at the next webinar we have by the end of this month, and we'll be putting up a notification for the same. So just stay tuned to the Water Practitioners Network. Thank you.